Hey there and welcome back to another Win or Lose video. And today we're going to be talking about episode 5, Steel, which changes tack and follows a new set of characters after the double episode of Rochelle and her mum. This time we follow the character of Ira, the younger brother of Taylor, who plays on the Pickle softball team. Previously we'd seen this little dude in Rochelle's episode where he tells her about how a hot dog's made, and then again at the end where he appeared in the garage asking if anybody wants to play Smash with him. Then we see him again in Vanessa's episode where she approaches the party and almost runs him over as he scuttles across the road. The previous two-parter, Raspberry and Pickle, was the peak of the show at that point. And whilst I'm not sure as a collective that Steel and Mixed Signals ever really hit that same high, I think that Steel is probably my favourite episode of the show that we've seen so far. It really is just a rather beautiful and heartfelt episode with a lot to love about it. And so with all that being said, let's jump into it. Right from the get-go, this episode introduces us to the overarching concept that ties it together, and that is Ira's imagination. He has a very developed and robust creative mind, which manifests itself throughout the episode. Once again, it shows off the internal thoughts and true feelings of our lead character, and heightens the emotion of what's going on. The style itself is extremely after-school cartoon, and for me was a contributing factor in liking this episode the most. I found that it brought something really fresh and vibrant to the table, and enhanced his daydreams in a very clever way. I've seen some rumblings online that there are people out there that don't like that they included different visual styles and wish it remained uniform across the whole show. And I just don't understand that perspective, not one bit. I love it when studios mix and match animation styles, and in this show specifically, it is shown to be an important part of the visual storytelling that showcases how a particular character thinks and feels. Literally every single character. If you take it away, it takes away a huge part of what makes the show unique, what makes it feel fresh. Some people. But yes, we get to see this very vibrant, dynamic, and exciting style, as Ira, already bored of his sister's softball game, but with no choice but to stay and watch, begins to create stories and fantastical events to spice things up a bit. I've been there. I feel like most kids have been there. Instantly, he becomes so relatable. We actually learn a lot from this little snippet too. First up, beyond him being creative, we see that his sister Taylor seems to be his hero and best friend. When he's thinking about a character to step up and save the world from a falling meteor, it is Taylor who plays that role. So it's clear they're close. It's also very clear that he's considered a bit of an outsider to his peer group, as when he's doing his thing, having fun, a pair of boys about his age are pointing and laughing. On top of that, based on his reaction to their words, he's insecure about this fact, and he knows he doesn't fit in. It's rather sad, really. Although when he imagines that meteor coming down to specifically smite them after he hears them talking shit, yeah, I felt that. I still do that sometimes. I just imagine terrible things befalling the people that have pissed me off all the time. Perhaps it's not the healthiest thing to do, but at the same time it's nice to know I'm not alone. We also know that despite what Vanessa's version seems to suggest about her being late to the game and only catching the final play before the game ended, she in fact seems to have arrived earlier and was watching from the first innings. However, despite this, it seems, based on Ira's recollection, Rochelle's version of events was more accurate than Vanessa's. In Vanessa's episode, she only turns away from the action to yell at the blonde guy, and she still sees her daughter win, and they make eye contact and smile. In Rochelle's version, she misses it all, and she doesn't seem to be paying attention when Rochelle looks at her. She's currently streaming. This version corroborates the latter version of events. So I'd say it's likely Rochelle is more accurate for this specific instance. Then the game ends, and immediately the episode does what it did last time with Raspberry, and sets you up to dislike a specific character. This time, we're talking Ewan, the team pitcher. Already from Laurie's episode, we knew this dude was a bit of a douchebag, and a massive bully, having made that mean-spirited video of Laurie missing over and over and over when she was up to bat. Here, he continues to make a bad first impression, starting with pushing Ira out of the way when he was high-fiving members of the opposing softball team. I know this is meant to be one of those, oh look, this character's much deeper than you thought, setups. But even in his episode, I came out of it not liking him. Maybe you weren't supposed to though, I don't know. Here, after yet another look at the coach and his post-game speech, which rather funnily was just a series of blah blah blahs from Ira's perspective, we hit the scene where Ewan blurts out that he has a crush on Taylor. Taylor obviously reciprocates as she tells Ira to be cool and tells him to give her 20 minutes. When he dissents, since she'd promised to play Smash with him when they get home, she snaps at him and tells him he needs to make his own friends, which kind of sets up the main story thread of this episode. Ira trying to find people that accept him and think the way that he does. This in turn leads us to the trio that meet Rochelle at the end of the week on the day of the big game. The chicken and his pals. Underneath the bleachers, they're plotting against Mr. Brown for the crime of making one of them, Rena, cry during the 8th grade, which to them was the year before, which means that they're significantly older than Ira, right? Like significantly. They'd be in 9th grade. And this kid's at best, what, 8, 9, 10? Bit strange, but we'll run with it. So anyway, it's revealed that they're the ones that egged the car. Also, I only just realised that Kev, the guy in the suit, is dressed up like a chicken, but he quacks. He also seems to never take this suit off ever. Regardless though, unlike Taylor and her friends who ignore him, or kids his own age that bully him, these three seem to understand him more, enjoying his wild storytelling and his quirky personality. And thus, when Mr. Brown confronts him to ask who egged his car, he doesn't turn them in, and he finds people who actually like him for who he is. At home, this newfound friendship leads to a confrontation with Taylor, who isn't happy that he's now friends with the bleacher creatures, as she calls them. Why? I don't really know, but part of me thinks if we had a POV episode that followed her, it would show that while she did brush off her brother earlier when she wanted to spend time with Ewan, at the same time she's feeling a bit threatened and left out that her brother instantly made this new friends when previously he always depended on her alone. Otherwise, why would she go out of her way to sabotage his new friendship so quickly? I did enjoy that little brother got his own back though, and managed to throw the hand grenade to her, so to speak, by revealing that she now has a boyfriend. Hell yeah, little brothers represent. I gotta say as well, the best part about this whole sequence was the dad. I loved him storming in as if he's going to be the stereotypical angry, threatening dad trope that by this age has become massively overused. Instead, he's revealed to be a massively soft and over-the-top dad who's just excited to have his daughter bring a boyfriend round, and how he wants to cook him his 7-cheese lasagna or something like that. Just an excellent subversion of the expectation. Taylor's still mad at him by the next morning, and so he has to endure a lonely bus ride and school experience tailing her and Ewan around as he badly recites poetry he wrote for her. My god, that is one long poem. It's actually impressive, although once again, this is Ira's POV, so maybe it just seems worse in his head than it actually was. Regardless, this leads to Ira arriving at the softball park, which is where he meets back up with the bleacher creatures. Unlike his sister who continues to scorn him and find him annoying or cringe, these three once again prove themselves to be very accepting and indulgent of him. Although, hearing that Australian accent attempt, it just made me sad, man. Stop. To stave off hunger, the four decide to play Snack Shack Attack, which is a fancy way of saying that Ira's going to distract the shopkeeper whilst the others steal a bunch of candy. At first to Ira, this seems like a really good idea. His wild imagination and the fantastical way that his new friends talk about things makes him forget about the bad thing they're doing and think of it as just a game, just a fantasy. Until that rush wears off and he realizes that he just helped to steal and that Cynthia, the nice lady that runs the store, is very upset. This causes him to doubt and to waver, only to remain in the group due to that feeling of belonging. Once again, I find myself marveling at the depth of writing for this show. Truly is a crime that it might just be a one and done, last of its kind. From here we get a very sweet montage of the creatures taking him under their wing and just giving him the friendship experience. Doing everything you see kids doing in any coming of age story ever. Riding bikes, going to the skate park, pranking Mr. Brown again whilst he's swiping on his dating app. I gotta say as well that them knowing where he lives is a little troubling, by the way. They go and see an action movie together, which, based on the line about family, is a spoof about the Fast and the Furious. Also, the lead guy is bald with a deep voice, so there's that as well. They let off fireworks, and everything's great. I mean, a bit weird that this group of 15-year-olds are hanging out with a small boy and taking him to high school parties, but I guess it is what it is. At the party is where everything starts to go wrong, though. When his friends step away to go and speak to Rochelle alone, his imagination kicks in. He can't hide it anymore. It gives him a lot of time to think about what's been going on, and the stolen candy, to him, comes to life and accuses him of being a thief. To get his mind off of that, he goes to find his friends, which is where his episode intersects with Rochelle's. His offer to play Smash interrupts the meeting and allows her to escape with Kev following alone in the truck, whilst Brian and Rena have a massive argument, with Brian going on to yell at Ira and break his little cylinder thing that opens up his imagination. From this point onwards, there's no more imagination. There's no more magic from Ira. It all stops. Damn, that left me feeling really sad. Gotta say, Brian's got some anger issues. He threw his phone against the wall, raged at Rena, and also at Ira, and broke his toy thingy. Now that is teenage angst. Felt very realistic too. Especially the very toxic, "No, don't be a baby." Also, since we've already seen that they stole from the place before, what were they going to do with the keys, do you reckon? Were they gonna just pillage the whole place? Be real degenerates? Part of me wonders whether they were going to be good Samaritans and actually put some money in its place. Might be a long shot though. Ira heads home and gets caught up going to the big game with his mum and sister, who only a week into a new relationship seems to have hit a bit of a rough patch that might be leading into a breakup. I realise that romance for young teens changes as quickly as the weather at times, but my god, making it only 7 days is very impressive. Hats off to you, Ewan. Congratulations. You're a spud. Taylor, of course, takes out her angst on her brother, which actually genuinely pissed me off. And so he's really just left completely alone. Seriously, his sisters treated him like some absolute shit. in this episode. I wonder if they'll ever address that. They don't in this one or the next, that's for sure. He then goes down to the snack shack, which is currently closed up, and writes an apology note before he sees Brian and Kev, with Brian having repaired his imagination cylinder thing and admitting he'd been 100% in the wrong. A sheeple. It seems that Ira's also going to be accepting that apology as well, which is very wholesome. Their friendship montage really did do the heavy lifting for this. It got me on board with the group, and I like that they didn't just have them turn out to be assholes that were using him or didn't really care about him. I think it shows sophistication in the writing that they can make characters that have done a lot of bad things across the episode seem so likable, and also have them behave badly in one respect, but make it clear that it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person overall, or a bad friend, or etc, etc. This ending was really just so sweet and hopeful. I loved it, although I did note that Rena wasn't present with the other two, at least I don't think she was. And she'd been fighting with Brian before the blow up with Ira, so perhaps not all is well there at the moment either. Are they going to have time to follow up with that, or is that going to be left as a plot point for the audience to resolve in their head? And so yeah, that's where the episode ends. I just loved it. Perfect. Really sweet and heartfelt and whimsical, and shows the growing pains of making friends and peer pressure and all that coming of age stuff. I really hope we see more of this storyline before all's said and done. And so with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.